jacket don't make me no street fighter. Your long fingernails don't make you no movie star. We better shed our skin, find out who we're hiding. I don't think I wanna take the waiting anymore. If you're afraid to fall, then never walk a while. If you're afraid to burn, you'll never swallow fire.
So who are you? What's your government name, sir?
Government name, Michael Wilker.
Where are you from, Michael? Were you born in Nashville?
Nashville, born and raised Nashville.
Brothers, sisters?
One brother.
Folks, what'd they do for a living back in the day?
Property management and real estate.
No shit.
Yep.
Were they music folks?
Not music folks.
One of my first memories of music was I kind of grew up on the 60s and 70s stuff. The first album I remember listening to as a kid was Led Zeppelin 2. And you remember in A Whole Lot of Love, at the end of it, he's having a pretty killer orgasm. I remember asking my mom about it. I was like, what's going on? I'm like 8. She's like, oh, he's fallen. He's just fallen. And later I learned. So what'd you do growing up? What kind of kid were you?
So for music, my granddad had a pawn shop at 419 Broadway, which is now Hank Williams Jr. Boogie Bar. So I grew up, it's next door to Ernest Tubbs Records and on one side and a 25-cent peep show on the other side. So there was porn and music and on both sides. And
How old were you?
Since childhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my granddad probably started it in the 40s. I think he was up by Printer's Alley and what was called the I'll think of it in a minute. But he was on Dedrick Street, and then in the 50s, the pawn shops moved down to Broadway. So there was he had a lot of musical instruments, and all the musicians would come in and get their guitar picks and strings and drumsticks and check shit out.
Getting ready to play gigs and stuff?
Yep.
Much smaller town back then? Or Nashville's kind of always been known for country music, but...
It was a smaller town, but it was a good town. So all the musical instruments were available to me as a kid, so I played saxophone.
Me too.
Figured out real quick that I wasn't very good at guitar.
Same.
Tried some drums. And I used to go upstairs in the pawn shop and set up people's drum sets and put them together and
Nice.
play around. It was fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't do that great in school, but I was I just didn't really like school. I was never a studier. I would always I could listen in class and learn shit, but when it came to being on my own and reading stuff and studying, that wasn't my thing. So I was a pretty solid C student back in the day. Were you good? How was school for you?
Kind of average in school.
But had a thing for music being around.
Had a thing for music and electronics too. I like microphones and mixers and tape decks. And
Yep.
love making tapes. And my childhood was full of that.
Was it predominantly country music back then? I mean, I guess it kind of is still.
For me, it wasn't. I was almost embarrassed to say I was from Nashville, because then you'd have to answer questions about country music.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about country music, and I didn't care for it. I liked, Kiss was big, and Van Halen, and just good Allman Brothers, Southern rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's predominantly what I listened to as a youngster until I found Widespread Panic.
Which is a great segue. Yeah, the Dead, yeah.
Dead.
Mm-hmm. Did you, what year did you get introduced to Panic?
I got introduced to the Grateful Dead around 1985.
Same.
And then discovered Panic about a year later.
Right when they were kicking off.
Right when they were kicking off. And I saw them in '87 when they came to Nashville, Elliston, and some kids whose parents were in the music business, I guess knew more than I did. And the band went back to their house after the show for a keg party.
Is T. Lavette still in the band at that time?
No, this was just a 5-piece.
Okay.
So, yeah, I got to meet the band the first time I saw them. Also, there was a guy that had recorded the show who was playing the show at the party.
Mm.
And I had a blank cassette in my car. And so I was able to dub the show after the show.
At the house.
At that party. So the first time I ever saw him, I got to meet him, and I had a copy of the show. So I was immediately interested in trading tapes right away.
Yeah. Back then, I mean, before like Sandbox and stuff, I'm guessing it was all kind of hand-to-hand combat with tapes and just trading out and stuff like that.
Yep.
I talked to Leon about the joy that I used to get from having a tape that I knew nobody had in Athens and just, hey man, I got that new Chesterfield 98. They're like, oh my God, I got to get a copy. All right, well, what you got?
I definitely am familiar with chasing tapes.
Yeah. When did you first buy some equipment and start taping? Because I didn't realize you were a taper back then until I started looking through some of the older shows and saw the credits for some of that stuff. Like you being, because you went to France for that run, right?
I did.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, I'm just more trading. And there were some guys that were a year or two older than me that were from Nashville that were big Panic fans, big tapers. And so that kind of made it easy.
I never had the pleasure of meeting anybody that was actually going to shows and setting up stuff, and probably everybody will kill me for asking this question, but like when back then, were you just buying general admission tickets and just getting in as quick as you could to set up in front of the soundboard? Is that kind of how it operated?
Yeah.
No special access or anything? Just
no access.
Were some places weird about taping, like wouldn't let you in, or? No.
There was a time when the record label, I think, didn't allow taping for a few months.
Dave and them put a squash to that.
Yeah, and some of the guys had a lot of stealth equipment where they'd either use a ball cap or some other configuration to sneak it in.
Mm. When I look at a show on Panic Stream and I see taped by such and such, there's that whole little, I guess it's making mention of the chain of equipment that's being used to record it. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. When did DATs come around and you guys started? Was that better quality? Obviously.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Very cool.
I guess they came around in the late '80s.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of stuff did you have back then?
I didn't start with the first D3. I got a D7 when the D7s came out. But I had a cassette recorder before that. I taped, I think, 118 Grateful Dead shows.
Okay.
So I was big into that too.
Okay. How was that? Because I think '98, wasn't that the first time they'd gone overseas? Like that was a kind of a big deal. Because they went and did that run, then came right back and did Panic in the Streets.
Mm-hmm. I think they actually did 2 runs in '98 in Europe. They did one in March. It was a couple weeks in Paris and Amsterdam, and then they did another one, I think, in around June, where they did 6 or 8 stops through Germany. And
did you enjoy yourself over there?
Yeah, it was a good time. There was one stop in Australia that would have been fucking incredible.
I didn't know about that one. So who's around you taping at the time, like Bennett and them?
Yeah,
because I remember his name a lot on like some of that recording credit.
A lot of old tapers back then. Hardy Ross, and Pat Sprouse, and Todd Henry.
I read an article that was talking about Dave was talking about how, like you said, the record label wasn't huge on people recording, but the band had the vision of spreading the music through the distribution of tapes, and how they kind of stood up for that because they knew that organically it's what had allowed them to reach the West Coast and stuff. So thank goodness for that, because I don't know if I ever would have found them if, you know.
And the longevity of their careers has been incredible. The bands that allow taping have had extremely long careers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so how did my first, and I think I told this story when I was talking to Leon, but my first encounter with the tape trade was in the Sandbox. I had a Horde show from, I can't remember what year it was, but Colonel Bruce was playing with them. And it was really good. It was a really good tape. And I had offered up my name and the show to be considered to help, you know. And I told Leon, I remember very vividly somebody messaging me and saying, "You're up." And I had a one Onkyo tape deck and sat up for weeks at night after work making those fucking tapes. And had I known how much work it was going to be, I probably would have not volunteered my services. But that was it back in the day. I mean, 90-minute tapes, 100-minute tapes, but that was a lot of fun. I think now how did you, I don't know the whole story behind Curtis and Panic Stream, but at what point did stuff start moving to a digital format like that?
I'm not really sure. For me, I had an issue with my health in like 2005 where I was in a coma for a month and a half. I was allergic to IV contrast dye.
What is that?
It's what they put in your bloodstream to do an MRI or X-ray certain areas. And so it had shut down my liver and my kidneys, and I was in bad shape. And so after that, I had about a year of recovery at home, and I just started transferring my own recordings, and found this site that guys were sharing from Digital Panic. Digitalpanic.org was the site. And I think that's where Curtis got involved and just was downloading shows. And I'm not really sure how the Panic Stream thing happened.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him about that.
But it was a really good community. It was kind of the precursor to social media, but for me it was a way to meet people and make friends and get advice on how to do stuff.
What other music were you listening to alongside Panic? I mean, obviously the Dead were still around, still kicking, but
I listen to anything that comes through town, really.
Yeah. I got turned on to Drive-By Truckers. There was a lot of local music in Athens, of course. Nothing really stuck on to me the way Panic did, though. For some reason or another, I couldn't shake it.
I got a nice wholesome story for you.
Okay.
Halloween 96. We got good and toasty. Enjoyed the show. And I'd driven there I had 3 friends, so I had a full car.
Mm-hmm.
And after the show.
Is that UNO or?
This was at the Odeon. No, let's see. Is that where? No, let's see. The Odeon was the night before.
Okay.
The Aragon Ballroom.
Okay.
96.
Okay.
And after the show, it was raining really hard. And I had a full car. And we're going down Michigan Avenue in the rain. And we realized that we're going the wrong direction. And so we whipping in one of those high-rise condominiums that's on Lakeshore Drive there. Turn around, and we turned around, and when we're going to get back out on the main Lakeshore Drive road, I didn't see a jogger. And we pulled out, and this jogger rolled across the hood of my car. And everybody in the car is tripping. And as she rolled, she's just looking in the windshield.
Oh, my God.
And everybody in the car at the same time goes, "It's Tootie," from The Facts of Life. Do you know what I'm talking about? She rolled off the other side of my hood and just kept on running.
Jesus. Looking in the windshield at you, she's rolling across the hood. Oh, my God.
So one of the guys that was in the car, he came up last week for a Predators game. And we went and saw the hockey game. And he just looked over at me. As, you know, we've probably seen each other 20 times in the last 20 years. But he looked over at me during the game and he said, "Didn't we run over Tootie one time?" Yeah, it really happened.
Oh, my God. How did you, I didn't know Neil from Hardworking Americans, but everybody that I know who had an interaction with him, either musically or otherwise, said he was an amazing dude. Did you have an opportunity to meet him before he passed?
I've never had an opportunity to meet him or have any interaction with him, but my friend Todd says he's a great guy.
Yeah. That was part of the reason why I wanted to do this, and I've been meaning to do it for years, was just kind of getting to know people that are in the scene. And we've lost some, Todd and Vic and Danny, and just kicking my own self for not having done it a long time ago. But Todd seems like a cool dude too. What type of music are you? Has your taste of music changed at all? You found any new stuff that you could turn me on to?
Probably not.
Just like me.
I don't really have any time to listen to anything new.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I did go to Athens during the pandemic and went up to Fred's house and saw Bloodkin in the living room. So I got to see a little Danny before he passed.
That's cool. Talk about a good singer-songwriter. Guy put out some gems. What keeps you busy these days?
It's enough just seeing music around town.
Yeah.
You know?
Just do whatever the hell you want to do.
I do. I've thought I see a lot less Panic than I used to.
Yeah.
And I don't know, 2016, 2017 were really weird Panic shows for me. And I went to the 2016 New Year's Eve run, and there were two guys next to me that just wouldn't leave these two girls alone. The girls had asked them 3 or 4 times to leave them alone, and you know, the little me's going to start a fight. It wasn't that big of a deal, but my date thought it was. And then 2017, the 420 Fest, we decided we were going to see Ween first so we could have a spot on the rail, because you can't just run up to the rail for the Panic show or the festival.
Yeah.
So we'd sit there for Halloween and we're jamming to the Panic show. But out of the corner of my eye, I see these two guys pickpocketing people coming down the front row. And one's pretending to video. I notice it because I'm videoing. And one of them is pretending to video, and they're taking girls' wallets out of purses and putting them in this backpack. And I was a little messed up, but in my mind, I'm telling myself, when they get to me, it's on.
It's going down.
Yeah, it's going down. And, you know, I just kind of casually waited for them to get to me. And when they did, it went down, and I had two guys by the throat, and, you know, this is the second time something's happened in a year. And I was like, man, I'm over this shit, you know. And people are like, why do you have to police it? And I'm like, I don't, but I just don't let that shit go down around me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I've decided less panic is probably better for me as I get older.
I only had I only had one bad episode, and I was pretty lit at Lakewood back in the day, and I'm in no shape to fight mentally. You know, I'm in my own world, and some frat boy started fucking with me like after the show up on the lawn. Anyway, there are people like that out there in the universe, I guess. But
yeah, I was just trying to be the. If you see something, say something.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I think. Clearly, there's a bunch more people I want to get in front of and talk to, just to learn more about them as people. And I think I said before that a lot of the interviews I read or listen to, it's more like a promo kind of thing, and you don't really get to know the people. So I'd seen your name before I knew you a lot on the tape and stuff, and so it's cool to like know you as a person now and get to come talk to you and stuff. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What's next for you? Are you remodeling?
Remodeling here as I get older. Panic in Mexico is more my speed.
Yeah.
And so that'll be next.
All right.
I'd like to go down to St. Augustine and get a free tan. I don't think it's going to be happening with this remodel going on. But
St. Augustine's a fun place. That's
a place I could do.
Yeah. That's a fun little spot.
I like the destination shows. And
yeah.
With something to do.
Yeah.
There's not much to do in Brandon or Durham.
What's your, do you have any favorite venues after touring a good bit? I mean, are there any spots that you really liked going to?
I really like the theaters, the Palace in Louisville. And
I still haven't been there.
You haven't been to the Palace?
No.
You got to go to the Palace.
Okay. Have you been to the Georgia Theater since they rebuilt it?
Been to the Georgia Theater.
It's nice.
They've redone it.
Yeah.
It's different than the original. But
when I was working there, I used to work.
Nice.
I used to work that upstairs bar before the fire, and there were times like if they'd have a big draw on a show. God, you were just praying. Like you could feel that thing moving upstairs in that balcony in the old theater. It used to make me nervous as hell, but it's like, okay, if something happens, I'm just going to jump back here in the bathroom real quick.
And the stage seems a little high for a sit-down show.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many sit-down shows they have with chairs, but
we used to go there as kids they would do like the World Series and big football games they would put up on the big screen. That was fun.
Originally it was movie theater seats, or wasn't it?
It was. Well, back in the day, it was a YMCA, and then they go figure. So I think that area was. I have to go fact check this, but I think it was a pool or something crazy at one point. But you're right; it had that really steep grade. Mm-hmm. So the day after seeing a show there, your legs were always on fire because you had a real sharp angle, and then, like you said, the high stage. But the first show I ever saw there as a kid was Digital Underground, and that was a lot of fun.
Wow!
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I know you got shit to do.
We used to record there and not even take microphones and just plug in.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's all I got.
Well,
I just wanted to learn a little bit about you and hear some stories. And
awesome. Thank you for coming over.
Yeah, man.
Shoulders. Don't need to be your daddy's Barbie doll no more. If you're afraid to fall, you'll never walk the wide. If you're afraid to burn, you'll never